One of the things that I thoroughly enjoy each week is checking in with the boys that we affectionately call the Hub. It's a collection of folks who have a very collective understanding of what's going on in the real estate industry, but more important, they're all in it each and every week. Ty, he is a real estate agent, real estate broker, real estate educator, creative financing legend. It's always fun to check in. Carlos, he is obviously a handyman, contractor, investor, and someone that I use repeatedly, weekly on all of my projects. Like to see what's going on there. And of course, Matt, the mortgage guy, you know him from our Wednesday conversation. He is an investor, but also a mortgage broker. He is talking to people each and every week. So, what we will do first, folks, is we will do our normal round robin with my check in. But please raise your hands, put comments down. This is for you inside the school community. This is one of the things, frankly, you are paying for each and every month. So please get ready to ask any of all questions. And if you don't have any, that's okay. We will find a way to fill up the hour. Just so you know, Matt, the mortgage guy, needs to drop out at 30 minutes. So if you have any mortgage questions, which I have one teed up, we'll make sure we get those first. I always go in the order that people got on. So Ty, you were first today. What's going on in real estate, buyer's market activity? What's going on as we wrap up the year?
In it to win it, in it to win it. So this is a great market. Nobody's working. This is interesting because this time of year, realtors, investors, everybody just kind of pulls back a little bit. They take their foot off the gas, and anybody and everybody I'm talking to, the one rental at a time community, realtors, everybody, I'm saying foot on the gas, finish the month strong, finish the year strong, create momentum for January. There's a lot of deals out there. There's a lot of opportunity. I just got a deal last week that I normally wouldn't get only because I was doing the work, doing the follow-up. So in it to win it, baby.
Yeah, one of the things I love about this, again, talking every week, is it's doing the work. I mean, sometimes it just comes down to those three freaking words, right? That I wear on my hat almost every day, do the work. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's getting healthy, which I'm trying to do now, or getting started in real estate, closing business. It's do the work, especially when others don't, right? And this is the time of year they don't. I talked about Thanksgiving weekend, that Thursday through Sunday being the best 4 days of the year to write disrespectful offers. Some folks in our school community did that. A couple of them got deals that they were shocked by. Let me just tell you, if you're in the market right now, most people have taken their eye off the ball. Let's be clear, inventory is building. Eye is off the ball. That means it gets easier and easier to find motivated sellers. It gets easier to pitch seller financing, creative financing. This is the time when no one is looking, in it to win it, do the work, all of that. So yeah, we'll come back and talk about creative financing as we go these round robins. But let's go to Carlos next. He was the second one I saw on the board. Carlos, what's going on in Fresno? What's going on in your business life? All of that. What's good?
Well, everything's good. Grateful. I think one of the things that I did notice in the month of July of this year, being going through chemo, I
Yep.
did see a slowdown. And but other than that, I was reading an article this morning from Investorpedia
Mhm.
by Elizabeth, and it it's promoting, homeowners have a lot of equity to tap into for renovations. For
Yeah.
me, it helps understand what I'm going to come into,
Right.
what I'm expecting up front. 8% of it was in 2024. It was people were doing repairs, and I know that the election and everything the
Mhm.
rest of this year has been kind of cloudy. But this
Mhm.
coming year, I believe people are going to be spending and using their equity to expand their current home. Nobody's
Yeah.
moving up, so for me, as a repairman, as a maintenance man, as as somebody who in the construction industry, I really advise those that are in that trade or in the industry to be ready, sharpen your
Yeah.
tools. This is the time. I mean, spend the time to increase your knowledge. Most homeowners are not aware of what's going on materials, new techniques, new strategies, new everything. I also was reading in the article this morning about when people do home renovations, they are spending more than they should. and probably because they're not aware of what's going on with material costs and all that. But how does that reflect in my business? Well, as we're doing this, we're getting better at what we're doing, and we've been doing it for several years. And
Right.
now that I feel like I'm getting up and I'm feeling good, um, I'm letting people know that, if you need somebody next to you to advise you, to
Yeah.
counsel you, to walk you through it, let me know, and I will do my best to. I'm more of a in person.
Yeah.
The technology is something that I'm trying to get better at it. Answering messages and social media and all that stuff. But I think is one of the best things that I can tell you guys, if you're looking for somebody here locally to
Yeah.
advise you, to counsel you, to just walk you through the things. Reach out to us,
Yeah.
I'll give my number later on. But yeah,
Yeah.
anybody who is in the trade, anybody who is in this type of industry, please know that right now, like Ty was saying, don't don't
Yeah.
slow down. Your
Yeah.
knowledge is one of the things. Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of things, Carlos. First and foremost, this is all live, so you can actually put your phone number in the comments right now if you
Oh,
want it, just
really?
so it's there. Yeah, just go for it. And the second thing, if I had to give you a recommendation for 2025, I think I would do two things, right?
Mhm.
Because you're going to get the repair business. Olivia and
Right.
I are going to send you 5, 6 jobs a month, all of that. That's just kind of
Mhm.
steady Eddie stuff for you, which is
Mhm.
great. But I would actually get a little more proactive. I think I
Right.
would do two things if I were you. First, I would go down to the city and I would get a physical copy of the three, I think it's three ADU plans that are
Mhm.
approved by the city. I would
Right.
go get those. I would then try to get those broken down into different costs like framing or, like lot prep,
Mhm.
framing, electrical, work with the various GCs. I think I would just become more educated in that because
Right.
I think one of the things that we could do for you in 2025 is get more people interested in building ADUs. So if
Right.
you go out and do that work up front and get ballpark figures, because every job is slightly different, but I think that would be a lot more education, a lot more discussions for you
Mhm.
and lead to that kind of value add, right? Because there's a lot of trapped equity and a lot of folks will be looking to build or add an ADU or mother-in-law or casita or whatever the heck you want to call it.
Yeah.
So I would do that. Second thing I would do is I know one of the jobs you did this year, but I would go kind of try to make this cookie cutter is a garage conversion, right?
Right.
What does it take to do a two-car garage conversion to a studio? What are the things to think about? What are the pros and cons, right? I would spend some work, the next 2 weeks while maybe jobs are a little bit slower.
Mhm.
I would do that to just turbocharge your business. And then you and I talk every week. One of the topics will be, some, one of those things. So you get more interested parties reaching out to you in Fresno, the Central Valley. So that's something I would do. Make sense?
Totally. It does.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Mr. Matthew, it looks like you're going to be with us for the full hour. Thank you for rescheduling that meeting. Much appreciated. What's going on in mortgage? Last week, mortgage purchases were up. I'm curious what happened this weekend. Are we getting to the Santa Claus pause or what's going on with buyers?
Well, this is my favorite part is that, I don't just play a mortgage guy on TV. I don't just play a mortgage guy on YouTube. I'm actually out there writing mortgages. And a lot of them for investors. I got 4 contracts between Friday and Saturday. 2 are investors, two are primary purchases. First time home buyer buying a condo, got a great deal on that. Another buyer who's this will be an interesting one to see if this is a trend, Mike.
Mhm.
Bought something a little bit above their means
Okay.
and said, "Uh-oh, $6,000 a month is expensive."
Yeah.
Now found something like $250,000 cheaper. And so
Mm.
same agent helped him buy the house is saying, "We're going to get out of this. We're going to get to something, $1,500 a month cheaper,
Nice.
is gonna feel a lot better for this family." And then a couple investor clients, I am surprised, even though we talk about it and it's like these higher rates and all this turbulence in the market is great for investors in a neighborhood that I know really well that I own single families in. Like, you can't get anything in decent shape for under 500. This investor not only got something at 465, but it's in great shape. Just stick a renter in there, it's turnkey and ready to roll.
Wow.
Wouldn't have happened in the summertime.
No.
Like, it probably only happens between Thanksgiving and Christmas, this neighborhood at this price, right? And
No,
so the investor is
that's
smart enough to know. And, this investor who I've done a couple loans for now is like, Matt, if I find another one, it'll be easy just to run them side by side, same documents to the same
Yeah.
underwriter and not have to go that. And I said, of course. So he's got another one that probably in the low 400s, one kind of neighborhood over, which will be a phenomenal rental. I went and walked through it this weekend just because I'm a, investor myself and curious about real estate. So deals are happening. That's the good news. This week, we've got all kinds of data. We got the Fed meeting. Quick reminder to the ORAC community, you guys are sharper than your average person out there. Don't be okey-doked thinking that this Fed rate cut means anything about mortgage interest rates.
Oh, it's already priced in.
And I'm going to say it now. All of these inflation numbers that are going to come out, the numbers they're replacing, inflation is going to tick up. Yeah. Mortgage rates will likely get worse this week in the midst of this Fed rate cut. So in September, a lot of people got okey-doked. Yay, the Fed is lowering interest rates by 50 basis points. And then mortgage rates shot up. They're not going to shoot up. The hope is, the optimist in me says they'll remain flat, but it's more likely they go higher as the Fed cuts rates. So as an investor, all the more reason. Get out there and get disrespectful. There's another one, Mike, that I'm pretty sure it's an ORAT follower negotiating in Florida and said, Matt, we're almost there. Here's what our offer was. The seller wants to stick with this. And I said, make them sweat.
There you go.
And so that's what they're not budging off their number, and they're just going to let this investor sweat. Because quite honestly, if this investor is like dead set on 350, they're eventually going to cave to 340. It's like not that big of a spread. So let them sweat a few more days, let them sit in the market. And another deal, which there seems to be, for the people that are looking and doing the work, there's deals to be had.
No, I mean, this is the time of year every year. And again, I think this year is unique because, again, we had the election, which caused a pause. We've had inventory building. And again, we just have so many people just not participating. That's why I called the buyer's market. And I think most people would agree I was right 8-10 weeks ago when I called it. I think it's possible the buyer's market goes throughout Q1.
Especially so we'll if rates remain high. Yeah.
Oh, they're going to be, again, I'm calling 7% above. It's funny. I think all the risk for rates this week are higher, right? We have a Fed meeting on Wednesday. It seems to be a lock that they cut a quarter, but I got to tell you, I don't think they should, right? And Nikki Leakes from the Wall Street Journal is talking about Jerome Powell being in a tough spot, yada yada. Maybe they get a backbone and don't cut. If they don't cut, Matt, rates are going up, right? Because the market's not priced for a pause.
Yeah, that'll be a shock to the market. And like 97% as of the last time I looked at that they're going to cut. So we're expecting a cut. So don't think that will have any positive impact on rates, because it won't. It's fully baked in. But yeah, if they didn't cut, that would have an impact. And then for anybody who follows the dot plot, or those that don't know, that's the Fed looking into 2025 and different presidents saying, I think we're going to have 3 rate cuts. I think 5. I think 4.
I think 0.
Right. That most likely, Mike, is going to be a revision from the one they did 12 weeks ago, as far as less cuts expected. That is going to be negative impact on mortgage interest rates, meaning rates higher. So before I forget to, since Lars put this question in here,
please do it.
Yeah. Lars had a question about he's looking in Delaware for C2P loans. I think that's construction to permanent is what he's asking about.
Yeah.
And what I would say, Lars, is being the honest gent that I am, not my specialty. I think Convoy does enough construction to permanent that I'd give them a call and ask them about it. And
they do a lot. They do a lot more of that.
Are they available in Delaware? And then the question about what spread on the 10-year Treasury should I expect on that? I'm guessing he's just asking about rate.
Yeah, so let's get it. So, again, when you look at traditionally what we look at this channel is just the 30-year to the 10-year note, and that's, I think, right now running around 265 basis points. A construction to perm loan is going to be more than that. Yeah. A construction to permanent loan's probably going to have an 8 handle on it, might have a 9. Construction to permanent will also be variable, not fixed. At least during the construction phase. But yeah, please go to Convoy Home Loans. They're the guys that, at least in my network, that do a lot more of those, and they can kind of walk you through that, Lars. So don't want to talk about stuff that we don't know, because that would just be not who we are.
Yep.
Let me do one more mortgage question, because I did have this one prepared for Matt when I only thought him for I had him for a half hour, but I'm glad he is here. This one comes from our school community. Shout out Marissa for this question. So I think so basically the question is, I'll just read it, screw it, instead of summarizing. I've been stuck for a while and would love some direction. My family and I want to buy our house to live in the next year. So they want to buy an owner occupied house. We narrowed our buy box we're looking at next spring. I'd love to narrow our market and focus on rental property. So now she's talking about, hey, I also am looking at rental. But I'm worried that getting a rental property will affect our debt to income ratio and not allow us to qualify as much for a personal residence. Should I be worried about something like this, Matt? So kind of lay that out. Ask me questions if you have any.
Well, I was going to say, I was going to answer it a couple different ways. One, I would love to hear, the 5-year plan or the 10-year plan, because if the plan is, I want to buy a primary, I want to buy a rental, I would strategically buy the rental first as a primary. Move into it, and if the area is fine and you can stand to live there for a year, buy that as a primary, and then go out there and look for a new primary that fits your kind of upgraded house that you're looking at now. If you do it the other way around, buy your primary, you're going to get the best terms on that, but then on an investment property, you're going to put 20 to 25% down, and rates will be slightly higher. But either way, I think if I'm doing those two purchases, I do one this fall and get a great deal, and one next fall and get a great deal on that one. But the DTI,
let me talk about, let's do the DTI part of that question.
Generally speaking, it's not going to hit you that hard, because what you're going to have is 75% of the projected rents on the rental to offset the payment. So if it rents for $2,800, the lender's going to let you use $2,100 of that to offset the mortgage. With today's rates and today's prices, that's probably going to be a negative for a lot of people. Your payment's $2,500, and even though you rent it for $2,800, $2,100 is what you use from a lending standpoint. So you've got a negative $400. Little bit of drag on your DTI, but not something that's going to take you from qualifying for $600 on a primary to $400. It just might be from $600 down to $565.
Yeah. So there'll be a little bit of it. Like if you went into this and you bought an investment property first, right? Do that math, work with a guy like Matt or someone else to kind of figure it out. So there'll be a small drag on the DTI, because you don't get 100% of the rent, you get 75. That was really the lesson of that. Yeah. Very cool. Again, folks, remember, you can ask questions, raise your hand, whatever you are comfortable with. Let me see if there's any more questions here. Oh, look at that. Lars saying he's starting to see deals pop up in Delaware. Guys, I'm telling you, now is the time. Carlos went ahead and put his phone number in there. We'll just say it out loud for folks not watching the chat. 559-681-8431. You will get the opportunity to speak with his lovely wife, Martha. Ty, let's go back to you. One of the things that you are uniquely gifted at is getting creative financing. You have helped me. You've put a lot of stuff in the school community. Let's just talk about getting creative this time of year, because it doesn't always have to be cash and a loan. You could do lots of other things, right?
Absolutely. Creative finance is such a unknown. It's such a unique thing that a lot of people, operators, meaning investors, it's a lost art, is the way I would say. It's a lost art, and a lot of the modern investors just don't know it. It's very, very simple. We have the access. I've got, multi-hour mini course inside of our school community. But I will say this, even just the last 90 days, the last 3 months, I've seen more sellers requesting, don't you have something else you can do where we can, whether it was me directly to a seller or through my community of realtors that I coach, my hybrid realtor, broker, agent, investors that I coach, more so in the last 3 months than I have in the last 3 years. sellers are raising their hand saying, do you have something else where you can structure this? We don't need all the cash. Can you figure out a way that we can get payments, installments, things of that nature?
Yeah, one of the things that, again, this all, folks, this all happens in a buyer's market. I mean, let's just rewind the game clock or watch the game film for a minute. For the last 2 or 3 years, if you were a seller, essentially all you had to do was stick a sign in the ground, maybe not even that much, and you would get list price or bidding war. Well, that changed. It changed like 8 months ago. But people, us sellers, our memories are what they are. And let's just put a date in the ground. Let's say the world changed in March of 2024, and you're a seller in April of 2024. All you're going to remember is, September, October of last year when your neighbor's house sold in 3 days. You're not going to realize that the world changed in March. And it's not going to, if you list in April, you're not going to figure it out until June or July. In fact, you want to be really honest and really, you just put it out there, you're probably going to fire your first agent because you're going to blame the agent who listed it in April who failed to tell you that the market changed, right? That agent probably did nothing wrong. You probably listed it too high because you were stuck on last year's number, and that has changed. But where does the story go? You list in April, you realize in May, you fire your agent, you get a new agent in June or July, you list it again, same price, nothing happens. Now I don't know, you're 180 days in, you need to sell. So you're going to have a couple of choices. You're going to lower the price, take, a 5, 10, 15% haircut because the market changed. Or you're going to ask questions like Ty talked about. What else could you do? Right? Could you give me my price if I carry the paper? Could you give me my price if I carry some of the paper? Could we do a land contract? Could we do all of these other things? Because there is a very, very big difference between a seller who wants to sell and who needs to sell. In most investors, and frankly, most home buyers, it's been more than a decade. It might have been 12 years since it became relatively easy to find somebody who needs to sell. Because for a long time, the wants to sell were just flying off the shelf, right, Ty?
Absolutely. The other thing that's interesting is what I'm seeing, and you got to remember, I'm boots on the ground. I'm talking to sellers every single, workday. My workday consists of 2 or 3 hours of headset on, talking to people, talking to sellers, doing lead follow-up, presenting offers. And the most underserved market I see right now is baby boomers who are landlords who, and I'll tell you, there's this consistent pattern in what I see. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Texas, Florida, California, across the US, this is common. We'll see somebody that's in their late 60s, mid 70s, late 70s. It doesn't really matter so much the age, but they've owned an asset, they've got a rental property, or maybe even they have adult children that live in the property. Now, a couple of things that's consistent. There's a lot of deferred maintenance, number one. Number two is that the property, if it is in fact rented, it's dramatically under market. The rents are not at market. They're 40, 50, 60% of market rate. And then the third thing, which is the most important thing, the owner wants out.
Yep.
10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was a good deal. They bought it well. They bought it for pennies compared to what fair market value is now. So for them to try to squeeze and get the most amount of money out of the deal isn't the number one priority. It's that they want ease and convenience. And not only that, the other thing too is that even if they are familiar or not familiar with seller finance, creative finance, they've heard of it because again, they grew up, they were adulting into the 80s, 70s and 80s when all of this was being developed. So even if they're not seasoned and skilled, they have an idea, they've heard about it. They have some idea that this is a thing that's available to them, even though they may not know the mechanics. So creative financing is absolutely a winner in this 2025, this market that we're in. There's a lot of underserved people out there that need this.
Yeah, I'm going to tell a real story from Olivia and I's background. And if Olivia and I were still in growth mode, because I think it's pretty obvious to everyone we're in chill mode. But if we were in growth mode, something I would be doing is I'd be marketing to any landlord who owned 5 to 10 properties in my buy box in probably in Fresno County, let's be clear. So if you were to go out there and collect a list of landlords who own 5 to 10 properties, that list is probably in a county of 1 million people, that's somewhere between 300 and maybe 500 people, right? Maybe as low as 250. Let's say 250 to 500. So it wouldn't be an expensive mailer. Think a buck a buck a letter. So you're talking $500. Plan to do it 3 months. So call it $2,000 all in. But what I'd be doing for those folks is I would be mailing them a letter that basically said, "Hey, I'm Michael and Olivia. We're young and investors, yada yada yada. We already own some, but we're owning to buy a lot more, and we would love to buy your entire portfolio. We could come meet. We can talk this. We can talk that. And if you're interested in just having a conversation about selling the entire portfolio, not piecemeal, I want it all. Let's set up. Lunches on me, dinners on me, Ruth Chris, or other fancy restaurant in Fresno. We did something very similar to that. In God, when did we bought from a gentleman named Vernon? Vernon, it was 14 units. So let me see if I can do the math. It was 2 fourplexes, a triplex, and 3 houses. I think that gets me to 14 units. We bought his entire portfolio. We met him 4 or 5 times. Again, as I've always talked about in my stories, Vernon wanted to talk price and rate. I only wanted to talk payment. I didn't care how we got there. Vernon was, of course, wanted to talk about future rent. And I said, Vernon, I can't do that. We live in California, rent control, blah, 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 or whatever. And I said, I can only use active current rents. And basically, long story short, we agreed to a payment. We both agreed to a payment of $5,000 for the entire portfolio. And I let Vernon figure out how we got there between purchase price and interest rate. And then we put a 10-year balloon on it. And the deal got done. Long story short, we bought it for about $200,000 under market value. And we got we got basically a mortgage rate at the time at par with the market, because that was more important to him. I think we put 20% down, so we paid a little bit of taxes. He paid some depreciation recapture, but the other 80% is called an installment loan. So he only pays that as interest rate comes. So if I was in heavy growth mode, that's the mailer I'd be doing. Is I'd go find the portfolios and I'd just try to buy one of those. What do you think of that crazy strategy?
Yeah. So spot on. I mean, that's like, it's interesting because I just pulled a list for a very specific part of the Bay Area, kind of like a working class East Bay, 2 or 3 cities. Yep. And the mailer came up to about, or not mailer, but the list came up to about 1,500 units, 1,500 owners. And then some of them were multiples. I didn't do 5 to 10 like you, but very similar. But everything you said was so spot on, and that, mine's a little bit broader because it's some individual owners, but it's people that have owned for a long time. Yeah. So like that, literally probably 1,800 records. Yeah. Very similar concept, exactly what you just did. And I just did that yesterday, Michael, with this same intent. So yeah, again, you've got to take advantage of what the market is giving you. And right now there's not a lot of demand there. The baby boomers are growing and aging out. In my second book, the most meaningful chapter, right? The second book, 15 Conversations with Real Estate Millionaires. The most important chapter to me was the 80-year-old woman who was selling her portfolio. Right. At the end of this, I hope all of us get to the age where, it just means we lived a long life, where we get out, as opposed to being taken out early. So, let me just add in there, Michael, one last thing too, is that let me just also say, okay, so now you start marketing to that small list, 200 or 300, whatever. And then you get somebody and they're like, no, I'm not willing to do the installment at my age, or I need cash, whatever. No big deal. Just do a cash deal. And then now either A, you go get financing, or B, maybe you flip the deal, or C, call me and we'll wholesale the deal together. I'll do the dispo for you. I'll help you get it under contract. Yep. But I'm just saying, like, this is what we just described. Simple, The key is that you just got to do it. And then
Yeah.
you got to not fire one mailing or make one group of
No,
cold
you got to
calls.
do it at least 3 or 4 months in a row. You just
Yeah,
don't
you've
stop.
got to
Yeah.
right. You've got to like, okay, every 2 or 3 months, mail the list. Every 2 or
Mail
3
the
months,
list.
call the list, call the list, call the list, mail the list, whatever you can afford. But point being is that I guarantee in what you said, Michael, the 2 or 300, there's probably, just knowing the probability, there's probably at least 5 to 8 deals
Oh, yeah.
potentially that
They're
happen
always
over the
thinking
next
about it.
first quarter. Just in the first
Exactly.
quarter, you'll probably have 5 to 8 deals that can either be cash, wholesale, or the installment seller financing.
Yeah. One more comment on this, and we're going to go to Carlos next to talk about some just bids and whatnot. Let's give some value to the group about some, flooring cost, painting, all of that. We'll go to you in a minute, Carlos. The last thing I would say is when I get pushback from a seller that says, "Hey, I don't want to sell. I don't want to be the first. I need cash." You know what I do, folks? Step 2 for me is the Velocity Mortgage 50-40-10. Folks, what if I gave you half the money now, right? Or a little more than half the money now, 60% of the money, and then you took back a second. Those are all kinds of the games. That's why One Rental at a Time is here. It's to give you these creative options. It's not, you don't have to do seller financing or a traditional mortgage. There is the beauty of the 50-40-10 right in the middle, which many sellers will be okay with because they get a bunch of cash day one and they get some cash going forward. So love all of that, Ty. You're amazing. Again, folks, don't forget, you can ask Ty questions, creative financing, all of that good stuff. I want to bring Carlos back here because, Carlos, one of the things I did with Maritza, gosh, probably 4 years ago, is we broke down kind of generic housing costs for remodels. So again, I know it's going to be hard for you because it's not all one size fits all and all of that. So I want to give just some ranges for some work that you do for Olivia and I all the time. You ready to do this?
Let's shoot.
All right. So let's talk about painting first, right?
Yes.
Let's assume the house is, I don't know, let's call it 1,500 square feet. Let's assume you have to prep it. Let's assume you have to put on a base coat because the last person put in orange or some stupid color. And you just got to take it, all of that. So let's assume you've got to do all the kind of prep work. Feel free to ask me any other questions you want to give a good ballpark. But in the Central Valley, in Fresno, what would a rough estimate? You can give me a range, low and high. Would a bid for painting interior be?
Well, if we're basing it on square footage, I could give you a quote for square footage, meaning
Okay.
how much, like a few dollars a square footage, meaning 2 to 3 to 4 to $5, depending. Most bids that I give you are just labor only.
Right.
I don't include materials, and the materials are the homeowner, or in this
Right.
case, the landlord.
The investor. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
the
And
investor.
just be clear, that's what I want. I want to buy the supplies.
Correct.
And that's why he does that, because that's
Yeah.
frankly what I ask for.
No,
Yeah.
it makes total sense. And then for a homeowner, I think you should expect depending on who does the work,
Yeah.
you can control the cost by doing it yourself.
Yep.
And I say that because there is a lot of homeowners that are feeling more confident now, especially with technology, to do that. But
Yeah.
I normally, if it's the way I break it down is landlord, homeowner, investor, and those prices are different.
Okay.
Yeah, they're different for many reasons. The landlord, I now understand the return is not as much as maybe an investor or a homeowner.
Right.
So I, you know,
Yeah, the
so
landlords
mhm,
are spray and praise. I think I heard one painter call it sometimes.
yeah,
Right. We're
yeah,
not interested in making it pretty or perfect. We're not looking for
yeah,
cut in corners. We're looking for clean walls and
yeah,
ready for and fast.
and move in ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
then
mhm. What I
yeah.
was
And
gonna
go ahead.
mhm.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, what I was gonna say is that in this case, when we were flipping houses, we were looking roughly about 25 to 2,500 to, and this is painting, this is the labor, this is the
Yep.
material. The quality of paint will fluctuate the price. I
Sure.
can get right off the shelf from Home Depot a color called Swiss Coffee, which most landlord, not just yourself, but just across the board, seems to grab it only because repairs along the way are
Yeah,
easy to touch up with a color
exactly.
cost Swiss coffee.
Yeah.
And so getting back to what you were asking, at 1,500 square feet, that's costing about maybe 800, 900 bucks
For labor.
per labor. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the cost of materials, you're looking at maybe $300 to $400.
Yeah.
This is again basic,
Yeah.
nothing fancy. We're barely doing anything
Yeah.
to
You're barely touching up nails or any
yeah,
of that. Yeah.
yeah. And
It's
we're just
spray and
spraying,
pray, as I've heard it called. Yeah. Yeah.
spray and pray. Yes.
There you go. Yeah. And then if we go from landlord to investors, what he means by that, just so no one's confused, is a flipper, right? Somebody
Yes.
getting in, looking to add value.
Right.
You're probably roughly going to double that
Yes.
cost, at
Definitely.
least double, probably a little bit more, because you are what I've seen and again, we flipped homes together. What we're going to
Right.
do on a flip is we're going to be much more careful about repairing the
Correct.
walls, you know, the wall mounted TV
Hmm.
repair. We're going to be a lot more picky,
Hmm.
because
Yes.
again, what we're trying to do with the flip, or at least what I was always trying to do with the flip, is I'm always thinking about an FHA buyer on the other end,
Correct.
right? And so there's a lot more prep work. Also, you're
And
going to choose a
yeah.
higher color paint, and you're probably not going to choose Swiss coffee because you don't want
No.
it to look like
Yeah.
everything else.
And I think one of the things that I've learned along the way is also two different types of investors. There's a high-end investor, and there is what hotel investor, where they're
Correct.
just flipping the house and moving on. And so the quality also isn't low, but it's medium, just like barely over the low end.
Yeah.
And like for instance, a high end investor will do the paint quality for the cabinet, like lacquer, which is more expensive
Oh, for
and it's
sure.
per gallon, and it's you use 2 gallons and you're costing about $200 for that. But the prep work is a lot more intense, and that's
Oh, yeah.
normally you're looking at $2,000. This doesn't include the hardware you're going to install. It doesn't include all the additional labors like bonding, glazing, and all this stuff that you have to do prior to using the product. And so that is separate from the walls and the doors and the trim and the baseboard. So as an investor, when you're looking at is you're trying to see what am I going to do? Is this a quick turnaround, or is this something I want to invest time in because I want high dollar? I know that there's a lot of painters out there that will do this for, uh, a fraction of the cost, but sometimes quality does matter, especially if you have home inspectors, you have the homeowner who potentially want to buy it. And especially now, I see a lot of homeowners on TikTok on calling out things. They're
Yeah.
constantly calling out things because sometimes we're trying to stretch the dollar and we're trying to cut corners, and because of that, they're calling out these things. And to avoid that, you want to spend that extra few dollars to be able to avoid that and have a nice escrow closing. Because I get a lot
Yeah.
of
You
calls
don't
for
want to
escrow
go.
repairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The most expensive work is the work you have to do between escrow and closing. That work is
Correct.
expensive.
Yes, it does get very expensive, and because you're paying twice,
Yep.
It could have been done the first time,
Paying twice,
and so
slowing down, carrying
yeah,
costs, all of
yeah.
those things.
Oh, yeah, all that plays a role. But I mean, a seasoned investor knows what to do and how to do it,
Yeah.
and I think it does matter who's your team, and your team
Yeah.
understands what you need. I
Well,
think Ryan can.
let's do one more breakdown for folks
Mhm,
that again,
mhm,
a traditional landlord, again, stuff you do for me all the time, and that's flooring.
mhm, mhm.
Let's talk about carpet, kind of the cheap laminate and kind of wood, right? Because again,
Yeah,
I think there's kind of three price levels on flooring. Why don't you kind of
yeah,
break down, all of that? There's even levels in carpet, right? Are you getting the cheap,
right.
carpet versus thick? And then there's the
Mhm,
pad, it's all those things. So
correct.
just break down flooring real quick, and then we'll go to
Okay.
Sid's question for Ty.
Okay, so in regards to flooring, I think people need to know, homeowners, investors, there's different types of flooring. And we're talking about the thickness of the flooring, the type of flooring, meaning does it have an underlayment already attached to it? That flooring you're looking at $3 to $4 or $5 a square footage, and this is just the product. This is not the
Yeah,
installation.
that's without
And
labor. Yeah,
yeah, that's without labor. And then you're looking at laminate, basic. And I've seen a lot of repairs where people put laminate in kitchens and bathrooms, and we're getting callbacks to remove that because the
yeah,
moment water touches it, it's swelled up, it's
gone.
spread open, and it's gone. Yeah, that's just a lot of waste. and on top of it, it causes damage to the subfloor. So getting to that price,
Actually, Carlos, real quick, is it fair to say that if you would recommend, as somebody who sees these jobs,
Mhm.
folks, put tile in bathrooms, in kitchens,
Oh
wherever
yeah,
there's water, please put tile. Is that fair?
oh that is always a lot better long term. And there is now luxury vinyl that's waterproof, but even that, if it's not installed properly, if it's not
Yeah. The
prepared
seams,
properly, yes, the
water's
seams.
nasty. Yeah.
Yeah, not only that, I think even baseboard, when you do it in bathroom, there
Good
is
point.
baseboard that is PVC, which what
Yep.
is plastic.
Yep.
I see a lot of flippers and a lot of, I've done it myself where we put regular baseboard, and what happens is people bathe and people use the restroom. There's a flood, and that baseboard swells up, causes water to go up underneath the floor, and and sometimes we don't even caulk the bottom, and that becomes an issue long term.
Yeah.
So the solution to it is tile the walls to a certain level. I would say up to 4 feet, and that's something I'm starting to see more often, where people are tiling all the way to the walls, and that is because they understand long
Yeah.
term to prevent any issues. I did looked at a home recently this month, and where the subfloor has caved in, the tub has separated from the
Mhm.
wall, and it's just due of you know uh, ignoring the maintenance
Yeah.
and trying to patch things up. And so uh, I think putting tile, it may seem expensive, like $3 to $4 a square footage,
Yeah.
but in the long term, it pays off.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned over the years is just freaking, especially the bathrooms, right? If you don't have the
Mhm.
money to tile the kitchen in the bath, tile the bath,
Yeah,
tubs, showers, toilets, the amount of use, the amount of frequency, the
right,
amount of time the water is on versus off.
correct.
Just tile the freaking bathrooms. My goodness.
And I just need everybody to understand it's not just putting tile in, it's what you do prior to putting tile in.
Correct.
Yeah, the product that you use, there's liquid membranes that you can put on top of the hardy backer to prevent, even if the tile fails or the grout fails, to
You got
prevent,
another layer.
yeah, you have another layer of protection. And I think those are expenses that most homeowners, most investors don't see. They say, oh, it's tile and grout, that's it. But there's more to it. It's the hardy backer, it's the red guard, it's the prep work you do prior to installing that will help you and the future homeowner, in their big purchase. The other thing would be carpet as well. I've seen carpet for 89 cents a square feet. Yeah, a yard, and I've seen $1.19. There is a difference. The quality, I met another investor or landlord investor at Home Depot, and we were looking at carpet and we're talking. I'm shooting the breeze with her, and she goes, I never buy the dollar one. I buy the $89, but it's real paper thin. And she goes, that's what I put in my
Yeah.
homes, and I get it because it's cost effective, but
Yeah.
long term,
Oh,
appealing. It's yeah,
as a landlord who's been doing this for 25 plus
yeah,
years, anytime you go for the 89-cent option, you're going to be replacing that every tenant turnover. Every
correct,
tenant turnover. Now, if the
correct.
tenant stays there 5 years or longer, you probably come out ahead.
Hmm.
But if you're in a unit that's turning every 2 years, you're actually losing
Correct.
long term, in my opinion. So
And Mike, I've seen years back, people are avoiding carpet now.
oh,
They're like just
I'm
completely
one
just
of them. No,
yeah.
I am absolutely. There was a time I carpeted everything my first
Hmm.
5 years. Then there's a
Hmm.
time I went to carpet bedrooms, and
Hmm.
now anytime I have a chance, freaking no carpet.
Correct. And and
Yeah,
I and I agree. I mean, it's more clean, sanitary. It's easier to repair. There's a lot of value in
it
having no
saves me
carpet.
money, Carlos. Just say
Yes.
what it is. It saves me money. Let's
Yes.
stop
Yes.
sugarcoating it.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. It does. It
There
does
you
save
go.
everybody money. Yeah.
There you go, man. So again, folks, if you're in the Fresno or Central Valley, Carlos is the guy Olivia and I use. He put his phone number up above. Again, he's going to take on some homework, ADUs and
Yes.
garage conversions. That'll be fun to talk about in 2025. Ty, let's go
Correct.
back to you, and then we'll bring Matt back in. Ty, basically, can you elaborate on the convenience to baby boomers and what systems do you use? I know I use PropStream, so there's another P there, PropStream, but there are others. I'm not sure which one you use.
They're all good. Whatever you have, just use it. PropStream's fine. You can pull absentee owners. But usually the ease and convenience, usually. So there's this big, big, giant myth that anybody interested in selling, what's most important to them? Getting the most amount of money, right? That's what everybody thinks. Oh, anybody selling has to get the number one important thing is get the most money. Michael?
You're so right. That is a myth. It's a myth. Keep
Absolute
going. I
myth.
just love that.
Absolute myth. So that may be true for 70%, 85%, a high percentage, maybe even in some markets, 95%. But it doesn't even matter. Those percentages don't matter. What I'm telling you is there's this small fraction, 3 to 5%, and some markets as much as 20 or 30%, where getting top dollar is not the most important, the highest priority for somebody thinking about selling. It could be ease, convenience. It could be getting out of the problematic landlording. It could be getting out of just so you guys know, when you guys were talking about the maintenance and the tile versus LVT, I started getting a headache. Okay. Like literally, and then I might even have had a few heart palpitations because I'm thinking about some properties where there's deferred maintenance and, oh my God, I got to call her and I need to follow back up on this tenant, that tenant. Like I literally had even a few heart palpitations. So just so you know, there are tenants and I'm not done. I got young kids. So my ass is stuck. I'm working for at least the next 15 or 20 years. So I got a lot of mouths to feed. I still got to keep my foot on the gas and still work. So I'm joking. I'm being playful, but I'm also being kind of serious.
There's some serious there.
There's some serious. So point being is though, there's landlords that the biggest priority isn't most money or I got to get all the cash or whatever. There are people that go, I want some convenience, or even still like going, you know what? I still need an income stream. If I get this big chunk of $200,000 or $300,000, $400,000, what happens? I get whacked, or not me, the landlord or whoever just sold their property, they instantly get whacked with Fed, capital gains, state, depreciation recapture, all of it. So a lot of them are like, hey, I know that my rents, I'm only getting $950 or $1,000 a month. I know that the rent should be 15, 16, 1800. I'm not willing to do the capital expenditures to go in and turn these units and rehab them. You know, what if I could get a scenario where I get out from under the taxes, property taxes, I get out from under the insurance. Oh my God, I keep getting cancellations on my insurance. I get out from under dealing with the property management because some of them I manage myself. Some of them I got a half-assed property manager. It's a problem. What if instead of getting the $950 a month minus all my expenses, if I could get $700 or $800 a month, and again, I'm just doing a little theoretical thing, right? If I could get out from under and still get 80% of what I was getting in, or get pretty close to what I was getting in cash flow, pass the opportunity to someone on, create an income stream for the next 10 or 15 years. My kids, upon my demise, can get a stepped up basis on the note value, the asset of the note value now. What might that look like, So there are a lot of people out there that realize an installment sale and/or seller financing could in fact be the very best thing for them to achieve most of their goals and getting out from under a problematic property.
Yeah. So one more thought on this, and again, this will shock people until you actually hear a seller say this, and I've heard it dozens of times. Ty is right. Thinking about the seller's got a portfolio, like in my case, Vernon. Let's just go back to a real life case with Vernon: 14 units, 2 4s, a tri, and 3 houses. You know what? The one fact that would shock most of you? The fact is, Vernon said a pile of cash was a problem. It was a problem, right? He could have sold for cash, and let's just pick a number, walked away with $1 million. That's a problem. It's a problem on many fronts. A, the tax man's going to come calling. B, his kids are going to come calling, right? Because dad, I think Vernon was 73 or something when we bought from him. He knew his kids were going to come calling, and he would have to put that money somewhere. Again, none of these things he wanted to do. He had no interest in the stock market or bonds or any. He's been a real estate guy for 40 years. So realize, folks, to Vernon, cash was a problem. So again, what did Vernon get? So he avoided the problem of cash. He removed headaches because his properties were, let's call them well used to be respectful. He removed taxes because, or at least a lot of his taxes, depreciation, recapture, capital gains. He still has an income because let's be clear, Vernon lives on his income, right? He gets like, I think we ended up negotiating up to 5,100. I wanted 5. I gave to 5,100. He stays engaged. Vernon and I communicate probably once a quarter, right? He goes, because he lives, dude, I don't live where my stuff is. He does. He still drives by and tells me stories and all of that. So he's still somewhat engaged. And instead of having cash, Vernon has a note that will be passed to his kids upon his demise. So it's a win for Vernon. It's not the myth of highest price. Again, sometimes in life, other things are more important. So there you go, Ty. That's amazing. And all of that is available in your masterclass inside school. I think we have it available at level 2.
How do they earn level 2, Michael?
You basically have to issue a comment and do a couple of likes. I think it's like 10 things and you're level 2. It's like not much. I just don't want any wallflowers. I don't want you to sign up and do nothing.
Participate in the community. So basically, like Facebook, if they go on, make comments, engage with other students, that's
make
the
a
thing
post.
that gets
introductory
them.
post.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. It's gamification. Basically, I love everybody to join, but I want a community, and a community means activity. So I put a lot of the value stuff, the thousands and thousands of dollars at level 2, and then I have my boot camp at level 3. So you got to do even more things to get there. But thank you for asking. So Matt, we're going to close it out with you. We've got you the whole hour. Let's talk about whatever you want to do in mortgage. So, seconds are still out there, home equity lines. I think rates will be higher for longer. What do you say for mortgage as we wrap up the hub call?
Yeah, I think that most things are now pointing to mortgage rates staying elevated for longer. But along the same lines of your guys' conversation about creative stuff, like deals just don't fall in your lap, right? You just don't buy something with a 2.5% interest rate and have a $2,200 payment and a $3,000 rent. Like those days are gone. So you've got to do the work. Like there's no other option. So me and Ty in California and others in different parts of the country, like you can't stumble upon a great deal. It's not going to fall in your lap. And so the vast majority of investors I work with are high net worth W-2. I'm an engineer in the Bay. I can buy something for $465 in Sacramento. I like California real estate because it appreciates 7% a year. I'm going to have some write-offs on my taxes because I make $400 on a W-2. And so if you're that investor, get yourself pre-approved, know the numbers, and know I can't pay $500. I could pay $465. But then for the other ones, what came to mind when you started talking about these creative deals, the sellers don't even know how it works. So how do you expect them to just propose it to you or agree with you the second you say, hey, I'll pay you X amount and you carry back the note at 2%? Whatever like crazy idea you have, you've got to uncover this stuff. You got to dig, you got to talk, you got to, find out like the goal of the seller. And through that, the funny part is I saw this happen with my own portfolio. Like things change, needs change, goals change, where, I've got a couple really well producing fourplexes that I thought that I would never sell, right? They're cash cows. But then I look at it one day and I'm like, holy cow, I've got over 300 grand in equity. It feels trapped. A conversation which uncovered my goal. I'd like some cash, right? An investor was like, hey, I'd love to partner on this thing, get in with you on this 3.125 interest rate you have on the fourplex, the monthly cash flow. Why don't you sell me 50% stake in that, right? We never get to the deal if a conversation isn't had. And so I think that that's something for investors to remember is like, you can't uncover wants, needs, goals without a conversation. So have real estate conversations. The more of them you have, the better you get at it. And then, from a lending perspective, being knowledgeable and knowing your numbers doesn't cost anything. It just costs your time. Invest in yourself a little bit of time to say, if I buy something for this price and I put 25% down, I finance it conventional. Here's what it looks like. If I'm an investor that has to go DSCR, what's a rough rate there? Okay, if I'm about a 7.5% interest rate, what do I got to do to make this thing a 1.1 debt service coverage ratio loan? Like all of these things don't happen by accident. I'm probably preaching to the choir because people that are a part of school are already like actively engaged and doing the work. But that's what's going to separate the winners and losers 2025. You do the work, you have real estate conversations, you find deals and change your life, or you don't and you don't.
Folks, at the end of the day, hope you appreciated this opportunity in school to interact with what I call the hub community: real estate agent, real estate broker, mortgage broker, investor, contractor, repair person. It is that collection that makes this interesting conversations. We typically only go for 15 or 20 minutes to get a heartbeat weekly test. This was an opportunity to go for an hour. Again, folks, we are in a buyer's market. You must do the work. If you want to reach out to Ty, you can obviously do that in school or send him an email at ty@tylg.com. If you want to reach out to Carlos and his wonderful wife, Martha, you can just call them at 559-681-8431. Or, of course, you want to go to Matt the Mortgage Guy. You already know, greatmortgagebroker.com. Thank you, everybody. You all are amazing. Thanks, guys, for doing this. Very last minute. It was an idea I had last night, and it worked out. It was awesome. Later.
See you guys.